Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's tutorial, I'll be showing you how to make this cute DIY felt Buzz Lightyear doll. He's roughly 4.5 inches tall and approximately 2 inches wide. So let's get started. For this project, you'll be needing cream felt, red felt, white felt, purple felt, light green felt, some black, darker red, blue, and darker green felt. You will also be needing white, black, cream or off-white, green, brown, and purple thread, a circle cookie cutter or stencil, 2 black beads for the eyes, a needle, scissors, a pen, some polyfill, and a hot glue gun. Alright, so to start, I'm going to pull out my pattern. I'll lay it all out nice and neat so I have easy access to it. Okay, so first you're going to take your cream felt and your cookie cutter or stencil and you're going to trace around it. I like to trace around the outside of mine because when you get it stitched, it's going to be a little smaller than anticipated. You will only be needing one of these pieces. Next, you're going to take your purple felt and we're going to cut around our cream face piece. And this will be for the back of his head. Alright, so next we're going to work on the front of his face piece. You can cut this piece a little bigger than you might need it, because it's always better to have our pieces a little too big than a little too small. When we get it hot glued on, we can trim it down if we need to. Alright, next we're going to work on his body. So you're going to take your white felt and we're just going to cut out his body here. Once you get this cut out, you'll have to cut out another piece. So you should have 2 body pieces total. Now we're going to cut out his arms. You should cut out 4 pieces total. So you got 4 arm pieces here. Alright, so now I'm going to make some room and we're going to start on his face. So we're going to take this purple piece here, you're going to lay it down onto his face, and if it's too big you can trim it down if you need to. Keep trimming it until it's the size you want. Once you get it to the size you want, put some hot glue here on the back. We're going to stick it down. Make sure you only stick it to his skin, not to the back of his head. Once that gets stuck down, you're going to trim off your excess. You're going to trim it right up next to the skin piece. Okay, put some hot glue down here, put some on both of the sides so they stay in place while we're stitching it. I'm going to put some on this side too. Alright, once that's done, now we're going to take our purple thread and we're going to tie a knot at one end of the thread. Normally if my thread is single, I'll tie a knot roughly 5 or 6 times. You just want the knot big enough so that it won't get pulled through your felt. I'm going to cut off the excess and we'll start stitching. So for this entire project, we'll be doing the blanket stitching method. If you don't know how to blanket stitch, you can click here in the top right of the screen and you will get directed to my video where I will show you how to blanket stitch step by step. You're going to stitch the entire purple piece here. Alright, so now we're going to tie a knot. Cut off your excess thread. And there's the purple. Now you're going to take your cream thread or off-white, either one works. We're going to tie a knot at one end of the thread. So what we're going to do is you're going to blanket stitch about half of the face. Leave just enough space open so that we can fill it with some fluff. Alright, so I'm going to start filling mine now. You can use your judgment on this. You don't want the face too stiff, but at the same time you don't want it to be too flat. Might have to take some out, put some back in. Try to get the whole thing nice and fluffed. Once it's the right fluffiness that you want, you can stitch it up the rest of the way. Once you get all the way over to the other side, you're going to tie a knot and do not cut off your excess thread. We will be using this thread to attach our eyes. So you're going to take your needle in through the side of your face and bring it out where you want one of your eyes placed. Slide your bead onto your needle. And bring it out the other side. When you go back in, try to go back in the exact same place that you brought your needle out. When you take it out, try to keep taking it out and putting it back in the exact same place. That way you only have one little stitch mark and not dozens of them. I'll normally thread through my eye, thread through my bead, about 3 times. The more times you do it, the more secure it'll be. So just do it however many times you feel like you need to. So once you get your first one stitched on, go ahead and attach your other bead. Alright, so now we're going to stitch on the mouth, and I'm going to draw mine out first. Alright, so you're going to take your black thread, you're going to bring the ends together and tie a knot. Since my thread is doubled, normally I will only tie a knot 2 or 3 times. Cut off your excess. We'll start stitching. You're going to go in at kind of towards the bottom of the head. And when you bring it out, try to do the same thing you did with the eyes, taking it in and out of approximately the same spot. So you're going to stitch the whole thing on, and then you're going to go back over it again. Alright, so here's my mouth. Now I'm going to draw on his little hair piece here on the chin. Just kind of lightly draw it on. We're going to take our brown thread, and again you're going to bring the ends up to meet each other, and you're going to tie a knot. Cut off your excess, and we'll stitch on his little hair piece. Once you get the whole thing stitched on, then you're going to go back over it again, just like with the mouth. Alright, so here's his beard and the back of the head. We have 3 nice stitch mark spots. Once we get done with the head, we're going to move on to the body. You're going to take your white thread. We're going to tie a knot at one end of the thread. And we will start blanket stitching our body. You don't want to start stitching right up at the very top of the body. You want to leave some room so it's easier to fill it later. Go ahead and stitch up the whole body and stop at the top of the other side. Alright, so here's my body. I'm going to take my polyfill stick, separate the felt pieces, and I'm going to start filling it. Again, you don't want this piece to be too stiff, but at the same time you don't want it to be too flat. Make sure you use your polyfill stick and poke it down inside the feet so the feet get nice and filled. Okay, so now I'm just going to finish stitching up my body. When you get to the end, tie a knot and cut off your excess thread. And there's our body. Alright, so now we're going to start on the hands, the arms. You're going to take your white thread. You're just going to stitch up the whole arm piece here. It's pretty easy because we're only using one color of thread. Alright, when you get to the top, I'm going to take my stick, separate the felt pieces, and start filling my arm. Alright, you're just going to finish stitching up your arm here. When you get to the end, you're going to tie a knot, and you can go ahead and cut off your excess thread. Alright, so there is our arms. Now we're going to start assembling the body. So first you want to position your head about where you want it on the body. Make sure you hide all this thread. You're going to put some hot glue at the very top of your body and stick the head right down on top. Make sure your body is covering up all the thread towards the bottom of the head. Get it nice and stuck on here. Alright, now we're going to start on body details. So you're going to take your light green felt, and we're going to cut out this green chest piece. This is a piece that I would recommend making a little big, because when we get it up next to our body, we will trim it down to make it the size we want it. Alright, there's my chest piece. We're going to set it up here on top of the body. Mine is pretty long up top, so I'm going to cut off some of the top. You want it to be able to fit underneath the head. So we hide the top of it there under the head. And that looks to be about the right size. Alright, now we're going to take our purple, and you're just going to cut some strips of felt. They don't have to be very long. You'll need 2 of these strips. Try to get them roughly around the same size. If you can't, it's no big deal. But try to get them as close as possible in size. So I'm going to cut this here, make it diagonal so it'll fit better up on my body. I'm going to do the same thing to the other piece. So when I set it up, it'll look like this. It's kind of like a puzzle. Now that we've got that, we're going to cut a strip of our black, and this will go around his waist, directly underneath these purple pieces. I'm going to trim off some more of my green, just a little bit. Get my black here. Alright, so it's all about where I want it. So I'm going to start hot gluing. First I'm going to hot glue on my green piece. Try to shove the top of it up under the head as best as you can so it looks a little more finished. I'm going to get the other side hot glued down. And then I have a little extra here on the sides. So I'm just going to take some hot glue, put a little bit on my green, and press it down onto my back. Alright, now that that's done, I'm going to go ahead and hot glue my black piece. put some hot glue here on the back of it. And stick it down. And then I'm just going to run some hot glue and stick the rest of my black down to the back of my body. So now I'm going to hot glue my purple pieces down. First I want to make sure they both fit. I'm going to cut just a little more off. Make it a little more diagonal up here. There we go. Okay, I'm going to put some hot glue up top. And stick it down. Now I don't want all of this extra purple felt on my back, so I'm going to cut some of that off, and then I'll hot glue the rest of it down. Alright, now I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Alright, before we add any more felt to the body, we're going to give him some legs. So you're just going to take some of your white thread, tie a knot at one end of it, and we are going to stitch on some legs. And this way it won't look like he has one giant leg. You'll actually be able to see that he has two legs. Alright, once you get done stitching the legs, you're just going to tie a knot up here by the black, cut off your excess, and there's his legs. Now you're going to take a piece of your light green felt, and we're going to cut a very thin strip of it. It doesn't need to be too thick. We're going to hot glue it right here under this black piece. And we're going to run this piece all the way around his body. Now we're going to add his fancy cool buttons. So you're going to take your dark red You're just going to cut out a small circle. Next, you're going to take your blue and you're going to cut out a thin oval. It doesn't need to be too big because we have to fit 3 of them on here. Alright, so we've got our blue one. Now we're going to do a dark green one. And then we'll do a red one. Alright, once you get those cut the size you want them, we're going to hot glue all of the buttons down to his green chest plate piece. Try to get them somewhat close. They don't need to be so close that they're touching, but we do need to make sure we leave room for the red circle. Alright, now we're going to work on the arms. You're going to cut a thin strip of light green. I guess it's kind of thick. It's not as thin as we cut for the body. I'm going to hot glue this piece onto his arms. Alright, I'm going to put a little bit of hot glue right here and just stick it down. Kind of reinforce his head a little bit. And do the same thing to the other side. So now we get to add the arms. You gotta first position your arms, see which one you want on each side. You're going to put some hot glue at the very tip of the arms, and we're going to hot glue it down to the back. Do the same thing to the other side. We'll make this one look like he's waving. Alright, so there's our arms. We're almost done. We just gotta make his wings. Alright, so for his wings, you're gonna need your purple. We're going to cut out this odd rectangle shape. So it's gonna start off pretty thick, and then as you cut, it's gonna get thinner as you get closer to the bottom. You'll need 2 of these pieces. Once you get that done, we're going to take our white felt and you're going to cut out 2 of the exact same shape. So now you're going to put some hot glue here at the top of the purple. We're going to stick our white piece down on top of it. And you're going to do that on both sides. While those are drying, we're going to go ahead and cut out 4 light green ovals. These will be for the tips of the wings. We're going to trim off some of the white and purple. You're going to want to see more white than purple. Then just measure your green ovals, make sure they're the right size. You don't want them too small. And they're going to sit right on the ends of our wings. Alright, once you get that done, now we're going to stitch the green ovals together. So you're going to tie a knot at one end of your green thread, and we're going to start stitching them. When you get all the way around, we're going to try to fill them with some fluff. It's not going to be very easy, so you don't have to fill them if you don't want to. If you want to go ahead and fill them, they're not going to take much fluff, just a little bit so that they're not completely flat. Alright, so now that we have our ovals stitched up, we're going to put some hot glue on the back of them. We're going to stick them to the tips of our wings. Just like that. Go ahead and do the same thing to the other side. Alright, now you're going to take your red felt and you're going to need a nice thin strip of it, and we're going to put some stripes on his wings. You're going to put some hot glue here on the tip. You're going to stick it down to the front of his wing. Once you make sure it's good and dry, you're going to go ahead and put some hot glue here on the back. You don't need much. You're going to stick it down to the white. Try not to stick any to the purple. You're going to cut off your excess. If you get some on the purple, it's no big deal. Just try to make sure they all end at about the same spot. So we're going to add another stripe here. And you can go ahead and do the same thing to the other wing. Alright, so now we're going to work on the compartment that his wings pop out of. So you're going to take your white felt and we're going to cut out this shape here. You can cut it kind of big. We'll trim it down if we need to. Alright, so once you get that cut out, you're going to measure it up to the back of your buzz. Mine is way too big, so I'm going to make it quite a bit smaller. It's still a little long at the bottom, so I'm going to trim off some of that. And that should be good. Alright, now we're going to add the pack details. So I'm going to cut out some awkward green triangle shapes. You'll need 2 of these. You can cut these kind of big as well. We will trim them down to fit the size of our white piece. And mine are super big, so I'm going to trim them down quite a bit. Still kind of long at the bottom, so I'm going to take off just a little bit. Alright, so that size should work. And now I'm just going to trim up my other piece as well. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and hot glue them on. Just like that. And you want them to be the same size at the very top. You don't want the green overlapping the white. Alright, now you need your purple, and we're going to cut out a small oval. Just like this. And it's going to sit right there. And now we're going to cut out a really small triangle. And I actually messed that up, so I'm going to cut out another one here. It's going to be really small, so it might be a little hard to cut out. If you need to trace it out first, you can do that too. And I'm just going to hot glue these into their spot. Alright, so let's go ahead and assemble our wings. Make sure you have a good idea of where you want it. Put some hot glue here on the end, and you're going to stick it down to his back. It's going to be right about the center of his back. I'm going to go ahead and position the other one. And it will most likely be touching the first wing. If it doesn't, it's no big deal, you're not going to be able to see it. But if it's long enough, it will end up touching. I'm just going to reinforce my wing here. I'm going to glue it to the arm in some spots. I'm going to do the same thing here to the other side. Alright, I'm going to take my pack, and I want mine to be kind of thick, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hot glue the back of it to another piece of white felt. And then I'm just going to cut out around it, and that'll make it a little thicker than what it is now. Alright, so now that it's the thickness I want, I'm going to put some hot glue here up top, and I'm going to go ahead and hot glue it down. Make sure it gets nice and stuck. Put some hot glue down the middle. Alright, there is my wing set. And you are done. Thank you guys so much for watching this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. New videos are out every Wednesday. Comment down below what you think of Toy Story 4 and which Toy Story movie is your favorite. Let me know if there are any dolls you would like to learn how to make, and I'll do my best to make your request. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.